And here we are with another episode of the podcast of Still with another guest from across the pond, Isaiah Simmons, sir. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Um, we were chatting before we hit record, and I was just mentioning that I love seeing Superman in my feeds, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And I do see your artwork always pop up on Instagram and Twitter, and it's lovely to see such vibrant colors just bounce off the screen. And I was honored when you said yes, that you would come on and talk to me about your artwork. So thank you for that to begin with.
Yeah, no problem.
May I begin with asking you of your origin story, Isaiah?
I guess let me think here. That's kind of I gotta think back for a minute. Okay, so you're saying like how did I get started drawing?
Of course.
I'm trying to think. I guess I don't know if I can think of like a definitive like starting point because honestly, like I've probably been doing it as long as I can remember. But as far as like drawing superhero stuff, probably since I started watching, I grew up with like the DC animated universe stuff, so, Justice League, Superman, Batman, all that stuff. So I remember I would try and like draw this stuff from that. Like a lot of it was Superman. Like I did some Justice League stuff, but a lot of it was Superman. I don't have them out anywhere, but I used to like I have quite a bit of stuff. I had some coloring books from like Superman the animated series, and I would trace them and then color them in, and then or like look at it and draw it. But yeah, so I guess it started with just watching those cartoons and then wanting to draw that,
I
and
mean,
then I just kept going.
it's a good gateway. You know, Superman the animated series and Batman the animated series. They're always a lot of people's first look into comics, and I think from that we've had a lot of more fans been developed over the years from that show, and I know sort of for me that's just sort of instant nostalgia. And I'm glad that those were some of the big inspirers for your work. And we will talk a little bit later on about some of the other influences on your work. But what is it that you love so much about creating and drawing superheroes?
Um, I guess I guess it's hard to like say specifically for sure. I don't know. I guess there's just always the stuff that like I could have been drawing other things, but I like drawing those things. Maybe it's probably I like the colors and I don't know. I like just that it's like the characters and stuff that I like and that I'm able to make my own things with them. I don't know. Like it's hard to explain. Sometimes when it comes to like what I draw, it's like I'll I'll just like I get an idea and then I kind of like have to get it out or else it's
Mm.
gonna like sit in my head for a long time. So it's like part of it too is it's like I genuinely do like creating this stuff as well, but part of it is also just like like I feel like I'll have all these ideas and I want to get them out, and so then it's like that's the process of getting them out. So I don't know. It is like I guess I'm kind of stumbling over my words here. I know
No,
you could probably edit this later, but
no, it's this is what I want. I mean, I've enjoyed over the years speaking with people that are passionate about what they do, and when I've mentioned this before in the podcast, is that when you talk with someone about what makes them passionate, they come alive, and that's what you're doing right now. You're telling me what brings you to life when you're creating art, and as you perfectly said, you get an idea in your head, and you have to get it out. Some people are lucky enough to be fantastic with words or to be descriptive with how they want to do something, but with an artist, you get this idea in your head, and you're able to create that, whether it be on paper or on computer screen. There are many Superman thoughts that go in my head throughout the day, whether it be reimagining old stories or thinking up Superman theories. And for me, I sometimes have trouble getting those ideas out of my head without starting to sound gibberish. But with your talent for creating art, you can do that in a very visual way. And I've seen your art change and evolve over the time that I've been following you, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to be going next. And for you, what how do you get in that creative zone when you sit down and you've got that idea in your head and you need to get it out? How does that come about?
see, so sometimes honestly, that initial part of starting it is probably the hardest because, like, when I have the idea in my head, I'm not one of those people. Like I know some people can just like like they see what they want to do fully
Mm.
formed in their head. And it's not that I can't see it, but it's hard to explain. It's like it's not 100% there. So like that initial part of like trying to translate it from my head to get it onto there is the toughest part. But once I get past that, I'll kind of like once it's past the initial sketch part where I get like the composition and everything down, then I can kind of see if it's going to work the way I wanted it to. Or like honestly, sometimes what I'll do if like if I have an idea, usually I would say maybe like 70% of the time the idea I had is because I saw something else I liked, and so I'm kind of riffing off of that. So then I'll always just go back and look at that. Like I remember there's one piece I did last year where it was that piece with I did the Fleischer Superman and Jay Garrick. And if you look at it, that was about the time that I think it was the Flash 900, where there was a Michael Cho cover where it was. If you look at it and then you look at the Michael Cho cover, you'll see that it was very clearly that that's where I kind of got the same idea for it. So that's one thing I can do is I can look at whatever I was looking at that gave me the idea, or I just kind of sit there and fight with it for a little bit until it looks like passable. How I sometimes I'll get lucky and it'll just click and it's like that, and I've got it. It's the way I saw it in my head. And then other times it's like it's more or less that way, but I'll have to change a little bit, but it still ends up working out. But I'd say yeah, that initial part of trying to get everything out and just like the super loose sketch and getting everything kind of composed and everything is probably the toughest part. But after that, it's all easy, or not easy. It's easier. I don't want to say easy.
Well, that's it. You're honing your craft, as it were, and it's. I like how you're sort of seeing things that aren't perfect just yet, but if I tweak this or tweak that, you can make something that's more descriptive or or true to your vision, as it were. Over the years, I've seen that you've shared a lot of fantastic Superman art and people that have inspired you. What have been some of your big influences in the world of comic art?
So I'd say right now the biggest two, and I feel like you can see it when you look at my stuff. The biggest two would probably be Darwin Cook, and then that I feel like that's especially with like my line art with the line weights and stuff I use, and I don't go quite as heavy as him with some of the stuff like that. But I'd say Darwin Cook and then Dan Mora. Those are the two that
Mm.
the amount of times where if I'm drawing something and I'm stuck on it, like if it's a pose or a character or something, the amount of times I'll Google whether it's Superman or anyone else, just Google Dan Mora and then that character's name, and the amount of times I do that is very high. So I'd say, and that's I feel like that shows a little bit too, especially with the way I'll draw like some anatomy or figures and stuff. And again, I'm not because it's like a middle ground where he's still a little bit more detailed than I am. But I'd say those are the big two. But then beyond that, there's all kinds of. I'm trying to think for a second. I know a big one is Francis Maniple.
Mm.
Like I've played around sometimes with like negative space stuff, and that's like 100% me copying him. 100%. There's that one Action Comics cover. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, where it's like Superman using his heat vision and the blue area on his costume is
Yes.
all yeah, it's all negative space. And that one, like that's probably like permanently stuck in my brain. And I've done a lot of Superman stuff where I do the same thing. But so him and especially because he used to do I don't remember what he called them, but he did process posts where he'd take a cover that he drew and then he'd go step by step on how he did it. And I actually stole my coloring process from him, like how I render and everything like that. And he's actually super helpful. But so he's for sure a big one too. Or I'm trying to think. I know another big influence would be Patrick Gleason
Mm.
when because I'm when Superman Rebirth started. I think I was about like I was like 16. Uh so that was like when I was starting to like I think I was about 18 when I kind of started like practicing a little bit more and trying to like actually get better at it. So I looked at his stuff a lot, and he actually like because I mean I was like 18. And so he was nice enough that I had actually, and I kind of cringe a little bit about it now, but I had messaged him on, it was either Facebook or Instagram. And I had a Superman drawing that I'd just done. And looking back on it, it was pretty bad. But I asked him, because he's one of my favorite artists, I was like, I mean, if he doesn't answer me, he doesn't answer me. But if not, he might. And so I asked him what he thought of it. And he didn't just like, say, oh, that's great, or even just like give me some feedback. He actually, and I've posted on my Instagram before, he actually like redrew it really quick and like showed me all the stuff that I wasn't thinking about before. And he was really nice about it. He wasn't like, oh, this sucks and
Mm,
it's terrible. He's just like, hey, here's some pointers here, here, and here. And it was all stuff that I hadn't thought about. Or and like one of them was because the drawing with Superman raising his hand like this, flying. And I I drew like the anatomy of his chest and abs and everything like perfectly symmetrical. And then when he um when he sent me back the feedback, it was the first time I ever thought about the fact that if his arm's like this, well, that means the side of his chest right here is going to be going up with his arm, and it's not going to be
mm.
perfectly symmetrical. And so it was stuff like that, and then that kickstarted me. I actually didn't plan on having an Instagram account where I posted my art. I made that account just to message him, and then he ended up following me back, and I was like, well, okay, one of my favorite artists is following me, so I've gotta give him something to see or to earn the follow. So then that's the whole reason I even started posting the art and drawing like every day, all the time.
Yeah, I think
But so he's for sure a big influence too.
you mentioned a few times that some of your influences have, you said they have followed you on
Yeah.
Instagram and X as they now call it.
Yeah.
When that happens, do you, obviously you feel honored and it's a big exciting moment. Do you feel a little bit of pressure as well?
Absolutely. If it's on Twitter, because I discovered a little bit ago that the key to doing better on Twitter, X, or whatever, um, was that like the algorithm rewards if you're saying stuff all the time, interacting with people all the time. So there's a lot of, because I obviously can't have new art every day or all the time. So I'll just make a bunch of like dumb joke tweets or whatever. So if it's on Twitter and one of those people follows me, my first thought is, okay, I need to go clean up my feed so they don't think I'm an idiot, because some of this stuff is just there to keep my account like, because again, there I the thing I appreciate about Twitter is their algorithm was easier to figure out.
Mm.
Instagram, I have no idea,
I'm
honestly.
still trying
Like,
to figure that out. It's one of
yeah,
those things where there are a million videos on YouTube on how to figure out the algorithm, and they all tell you very conflicting ideas. Whereas if you find a pattern that works for you, and then roll with it, as you say. But yes, you've had some interesting shares on Twitter. I say it's where I see a lot of your work really getting to a lot of new faces, which as a platform goes, it has its good and bad days, but when I see your art pop up in the feed, I'm like, yeah, need to share that one. Need to share this.
oh,
It's it's bright, it's vibrant, it's jolly, and I love to see it. But also your passion for comics is there as well, which I adore. One of your quotes, I think it was from earlier on this year. It was talking about Ed McGuinness,
oh yeah, okay.
and I'm a fan of Ed's work, and it's again it's that vibrant artwork that just jumps off the page. But your quote, as I've got here, as I don't want to misquote you, Ed McGuinness's Superman looks like you could throw the moon at him, and it wouldn't even mess up his hair. It's the best thing ever, and I think that's that one part about that particular type of Superman artwork is he's always very pristine. Not a thing is wrong with him, and he truly looks indestructible. But going back, you mentioned earlier on about your negative space work that I'm just fascinated with. That again, it's colors that you make pop off the page. You've done this with quite a few different heroes and villains. I will share some pictures when this podcast goes live. But how does that artwork sort of come about? You said you've been inspired by other people, but what's your process for making those art pieces?
Uh, See, so those ones are fun. If I'm being honest, sometimes they're the hard part is figuring out the composition and making sure everything will flow and work. Because like what I like to do is for it, like picking the background color that everything bleeds into is obviously going to be something on their costume. So if you pick the wrong part, it's going to end up looking weird. So that's the hardest part for it. But once that part's done, then it's honestly like those take me less time than a normal piece, because obviously I'm drawing less, right? I'll still like sketch out everything, but then when I'm doing the actual line art, like I'm doing way less. But as far as those, I guess it's trying to come up with a composition that like it puts them. I don't generally do like all the way full figure. I'm For those I kind of like sticking to more a partial figure or a close up. But with those, I still like doing something because I think it only works, or at least when I do it, it only works if there's still something what's the word, to like show the character there still, you know.
Mhm.
Like with the Superman one, I'll have the chains going across, so you can still kind of see where his shoulders are, or the Batman one has his cape. Same one with the Martian Manhunter one I did too, where his cape cuts, but you can still like make out the form. I
Yeah.
don't know, because I feel like for it to work, your brain has to be able to look at it and still fill in the negative space, so it doesn't just look like empty space. So that's the biggest thing when I'm trying to do this. A few of them, I think that they haven't aged as well, where I'm not as proud of the concept. Like one of them, and it's funny because it's actually one of the ones that I've seen get shared around more than the others. Or like I did a local like Comic Con here last year, and I think it sold more than the others too. Was that Green Lantern one? And like when I look back on that one, I'm honestly not that much of a fan of it. I feel like I could have done something a little better with it, but I guess people still like it, so that's okay. But that one I feel like is probably the weakest one. But like the ones I think works best, and that's the comment I've gotten the most to is the Flash one, where I did the speed lines and you can see
Mm.
his whole character out there. So I think that's the way to make it work the best. And sometimes it works. Or the one that I'm also a fan of is the Batman Beyond one that I did recently. I think that one worked out as well. So I guess I'm trying to think. I don't know if I necessarily have like a process necessarily where I'm like, oh, this is my formula for doing it. It's honestly just I'll try something, and if it doesn't work well with the negative space thing, I'm gonna change up the pose a little bit or do whatever I have to make it work a little bit.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that you're going back and seeing your work and not thinking that's perfect. That was me at my best. You're able to see where it wasn't awful, but things that could make it a little bit better. You could tweak things. You're not applying too much pressure to yourself, but something that I was very impressed with, and probably you did put a lot of pressure on yourself, was last June, where you created a Superman piece of, well, you shared a piece of Superman artwork every day on X.
Oh,
And
those
again,
are to be fair, I didn't draw one every day.
okay,
I had 30 from the past like year and a half or
that's
so.
fine.
But
I forgive you. I was still I was still very very happy to see that thread, and it's still one that I can scroll through now, and it's bookmarked, and it's a joy to see all those different images of Superman literally fly off the screen. How did that idea come about?
because I saw like with my Twitter, honestly, a lot of the accounts I follow, it's a lot of Superman stuff. That's my favorite character. So I know it was, I believe is it June? Why do people act like June is Superman month? Is that the month that he was created,
It
or the
was,
first
yes.
issue came
So
out or something?
well, it's
Yeah.
the one of the there's so much confusion around Superman's birthday and the release of the first comic. We know that his birthday was apparently on February the 29th, and that I think on the front cover of Action Comics #1 it said June, but it actually came out I think in a few months earlier. But yeah, but
Oh
June
yeah.
is normally Superman month, and Superman Day is around that sort of time as well. So you did pick a good time, that's for sure.
But yeah, so I did it because I saw other people talking about that. So I was like, or the year before I had seen that. So I was like, well, and that way too, I'll have something every day to go. And honestly, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember how good that thread did, but I mean, I liked it. I liked that I had enough to post 30
Mm.
things. There were a couple in there where I had to make the 30 days, and so I posted a couple that I wasn't as proud of as the others, but I was still happy that I made it.
It was a fantastic, and so I will share that out. It's a fantastic thread, and you know June's coming back up in a couple of months.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Are you planning anything this year?
I mean, probably I'm not playing anything right now. I guess I can be a little bit of a procrastinator, and so maybe when it's closer to that, I'll have the idea. But I'll probably just do something similar where I post like art that I've already done. Plus, I have a lot more that I'm proud of now because in the last year, I think I did a lot more Superman stuff. I had a month or two where I kind of got stuck and was only doing Superman stuff, and the last month or so, I kind of got away from that. But now I'm kind of getting back to it, so I'll
Good.
probably have a lot to post.
Which will claw you back into the Superman fandom. So we've talked about your artwork, which I love to find out more about. What are some of your favorite comic and Superman stories?
See, so the answers to those are probably going to be the same because that's mostly like, as far as my collection goes, it's a solid 80% and all Superman related stuff. Um, I'm looking at my shelf right here. I'm a big fan of All Star Superman. I feel like that's probably the safest answer.
It's pretty up there. Yeah,
Or Superman Birthright's also very good.
nice.
I'm trying to think. See, you put me on the spot now, so I gotta. I'm also a fan of uh the Rebirth books, and I'm willing to acknowledge that that's probably a heavy amount of that. Is just I was like, I was in high school, so I was a kid when I was reading those, and so it's that nostalgia, not necessarily that they're super good or whatever. Although I do think they're good. So I'd say that era, or I'm trying to think. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow is also
Oh,
a really good
fantastic.
story.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites as well. Or or one that um I was kind of kicking myself when I finally picked it up because I hadn't read it forever was is it Up in the Sky, the one by Tom King?
Mm.
That one was actually I actually that one went from being one that I didn't really want to read to I finally read it and it was like top of my list because that one's really good as well. Non Superman. I'm trying to think. I'm a big fan of see one that I've really enjoyed, and it's a recent one is would be the Chip Zdarsky Daredevil run
Hmm.
or the Donny Cates Venom one. Those are both ones that I have all the trades for as well. But so I guess when it comes to Marvel, I'm a little bit more like DC. I kind of can get behind anybody. Marvel, I'm kind of like picky, but Daredevil's a favorite of mine.
Not a
So
bad
that
character. It's always been a popular one as well.
yeah, and I feel like I said this before on Twitter too. I feel like he's interesting too because other characters when you read like if you read their entire history or whatever, like the quality can kind of like dip as new
Mm.
writers take him, maybe stuff doesn't work or whatever. But I feel like he's an interesting character because he's probably, or at least in my opinion, from what I've read, had the most like consistently. He's just his books are always good, and you don't always get that with a lot of characters because sometimes you get a writer that takes over for a year or two or something and just kind of doesn't do great or it's not everybody's cup of tea or whatever. But he's an interesting character in that regard. But other than that, I'm trying to think. They're probably all going to be DC stories. I mean, I like Kingdom Come, but
Mm.
again, that's probably a really safe answer. Um, the Grant Morrison Action Comics run. That's also one that I have all the trades for, and that's one of my favorites as well too. I mean, honestly, anything Grant Morrison does
Yeah,
is
I mean,
Superman related.
there's not much you can get they can get wrong. It's a fantastic run, and you mentioned Tom King, and Tom King at the moment can do no wrong. It seems. Hopefully, he's someone that's going to be very busy in the world of comics and DC comics in the future, whether that is part of the world of comics or TV and film. We know there's a big shake-up going on right now in the world of DC comics, and it's been an interesting year for Superman as it always is. As it's not always easy being a Superman fan, but this isn't our first rodeo, that's for sure. But what are some of the good and bad things for you being a Superman fan?
Um, well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I'd describe it as bad, but I mean, obviously, yeah, it's honestly, I feel like it's gotten better, but like I feel like sometimes it can be like if you tell someone your favorite character is Superman, they're just like, oh, that's boring or whatever, and oh, he can do anything. It's like I don't know. I've always been like I like this stuff, right? Like I really like comic books. I like all that stuff, but I'm also not someone where it's like I like it enough to really care enough to where if someone, tells me they don't like it, where I'm going to sit there and argue why they're wrong, or where I'm going to get into an argument with somebody over who would win in a fight between Superman and Batman. So it's just like, I was like, oh, okay, cool. But it has been nice recently because I feel like there's a lot, like, there hasn't been a lot of, like, I don't like using this word to describe, like, stuff people are making, but like content, for lack of a better term.
Mm.
But now we've got Superman and Lois, you've got My Adventures with Superman, you've got a new movie coming out. All the comic books are doing good. Like it is sad that Philip Kennedy Johnson left Action Comics because that
Yeah.
was really good. I think that was probably the highlight of the last few years or so. But I guess the good part is, and that's the nice part about starting to post my stuff on like Instagram or Twitter, is like seeing that there's a bunch of other people that like that stuff too. And so I can get away with drawing Superman all the time and not really drawing anybody else because there's plenty of people who like that. So
Mm.
that's a positive for sure.
Yeah, I mean the Superman fan sort of there's new fans, there's going to be the old fans, there's going to be fans that have not been very vocal on the internet as much, but there seems to be a lot of love for Superman this year, and I'm definitely not against that, but it's always a fun time to be a Superman fan. It's always something to talk about and going on. What are your thoughts on Superman Legacy, sir?
I'm excited for it. I was a big fan of James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy movies, so especially after the last one, there were a few things like the way he did Peter and Gamora stuff, like that gives me confidence in him doing Superman and Lois, or
Yeah,
even the way some of the stuff with Adam Warlock was shot, or like the way they showed his powers is like it felt like I don't remember if they've said the timeline of when he knew he was doing Superman, but it kind of felt like he knew he was going to be, and that was like a little test run for how he was going to do that a little bit. But also the fact that like on Twitter or Threads. I don't have Threads, so I've only seen screenshots. But where it looks like he genuinely cares about the character, and he's read a lot of the stuff, and like it seems to me that he gets it. So I'm pretty excited for it. I know there's some people who are kind of like hesitant about it, but I'm excited for it. I'll be there opening night for sure.
good man. Yeah, he's definitely got passion for the character and the stories and the comics. I've dabbled into the world of Threads again. It's one of those websites that seems to be popular one day and not so much the next. But he does interact with a lot of comments. He sort of he likes to clear up the air. If there's a very false rumor going about,
Yeah,
he will state that as categorically incorrect. But his love for the comics is there as well, and we've seen that when he's shared images of his sort of his one of his I think one of his boardrooms. It was just all
yeah,
fantastic artwork on the walls, and he's been heavily promoting comics as well, not just the movies. Which I think there's always been that balance between the world of comic books and comic book movies, is that there's not been a sort of a middle ground. Whereas now I think things are changing a little bit, I hope, where comics and the comic writers are getting more credit and admiration for it. And yeah, it's exciting times, that's for sure.
I agree. But yeah, so hopefully it's good. If the movie ends up being bad, I like on the off chance it ends up being bad, it'll be tough because first Superman movie in like 10 years, and if it's bad, it's gonna be a letdown. But I don't think it'll
Yeah,
be.
yeah. I mean, I was there for Superman Returns. I was there for Man of
Oh,
Steel. It's one of those things where you can pick the good and the bad from all of them. But this is
mhm.
definitely this is not our first rodeo, as it were. So, but the new logo, well, one of the new emblems that people are theorizing that there might be more than just one was released recently on Superman's birthday on the 29th. What were
Mhm.
your thoughts on that one?
See, so when it was like a week before when they released the little like one of the actors had shown the little like nameplate, and it had the logo, but it was just in black and white.
Mm,
So at first when I saw that it was just Kingdom Come one, I was kind of like, because I mean, don't get me wrong, like I really enjoyed that story. I like that logo a lot, but I didn't know how I felt about them using it for like a first movie. But then when they showed it, and the tweaks where it's yellow instead of the black, and then I think the yellow outline also really helped, and I like
yes.
that because I like the Fleischer logo, and I feel like that's similar to that. So I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, and I'm actually a really big fan of it. I did, and it's crazy too because I had done like a quick little like Kingdom Come Superman like little head sketch like maybe a week before they did that. And I mean, I did do it because I saw that they were going to use that logo. And so then when they showed it officially, I reworked it a little bit, and that took me maybe like 10 minutes to rework, and that ended up being like I've gotten I think like 2,500 likes on that on Instagram now. And before my most like post was 700 likes, so it's like that just took off. And my accounts, honestly, that's why I muted it. I'm still getting notifications and stuff from it. So maybe I finally cracked the secret to getting engagement on Instagram. But
It's again, you can't really predict it. I've had posts that I've worked really hard on, and they won't get anything, and then you'll make one
yep,
little post that has not got much effort in it as such as other
yep,
posts, and it will just go completely off the charts. And again, you can't pick the algorithm, sadly. But I'm hoping that when we do get more official releases and we get more images revealed. I'm looking forward to seeing how you interpret that and how you make artwork out of it, because it's going to be there's going to be a lot now. I think that the filming has begun. They're going to be in Ohio in June, another birthplace of Superman, where Superman was created. So that's going to be an exciting time. But for you as a Superman fan, what would you like to see in this Superman film? I keep wanting to say Superman Legacy, but it's not Superman Legacy anymore. It is just Superman. What would you like to
Gotcha.
see?
Uh, I don't see. I guess I'm not like one of those people where I'm like, oh, they have to do this, this, and this. Like honestly, I just like a good movie. Like I don't. I'm not sitting there like thinking that they need to like adapt a specific story or anything like that. I just. I mean, the bar for that is low, but I would just like a good Superman movie that you can watch and not kind of like, because that's the problem with some of the other ones that have come out before. I didn't know if you were gonna talk about like Man of Steel or anything, but where it's like there's bits of it that I want to like, and you can tell they kind of tried a little bit, but it's also hard to like at the same time. So I would just like it to be good, and I think it will be. Um, and I guess the one thing that I think they'll do right, or hopefully do right, that the last one didn't seem to put as much effort in, would be like the chemistry or relationship between Superman and Lois. And it seems like the stuff that James Gunn is talking about, like that's a heavy focus, and I like that
Mm.
because the last one was okay, but it didn't feel like there was a whole lot of. It wasn't like a Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder like level where you're like, oh, or even probably my favorite on-screen version of those two would be Smallville, whereas Tom Welling and Erica Durant's like.
Yes.
I take it back. I do have something that I want. It's like I would like for it to be like that
I
as far
mean,
as the relationship between those two.
I've mentioned this on the show before that Smallville was my pretty much my stepping stone into the world of Superman.
Oh, okay.
And the character development between all the characters in that show was fantastic. But that initial moment when Lois Lane joined the show and she had that attitude, she had that absolute powerhouse, but also there was that charm between her and Tom. And whenever she would call him Smallville, I was like, oh, this is working. This is them together. This
Hmm.
is an actual power couple. And yeah, we've seen a little bit of that. As you said, James Gunn seems to be pushing that forward a lot, and I would hope that we get a lot of Superman and Lois in this film. I mean, you can't really have Superman without Lois Lane. And Amy Adams, she did a fine job. But as you said, there wasn't much magic there. There wasn't.
Yeah.
There was a few moments of perhaps screen chemistry, but we also didn't get much of that in Superman Returns either. There were a few fantastic moments. I think your pinned tweet right now is Superman and Lois in the air. Whenever Superman is flying with Lois Lane, it just grabs my attention. If there's a shoe coming off her foot or some little moment like that as
Hmm.
well, it works. And that was one of my favorite moments from Superman Returns is when he is those moments with Lois. And yeah, so seeing that as your pin tweet, and I think that's the sort of magic we should hopefully be getting with James Gunn Superman. What is it about Lois Lane though that appeals to you so much?
Um, I mean, see, I guess that's something I never thought about before. I guess I'm trying to think. I guess I don't know. I grew up with, Superman the animated series, so it's always, I guess maybe it's less of like having like where I'm like, oh, I really like this character, which I do, but like where it's just like, I don't know, like in my head, that's the way it should be. Like it's just those two. But I guess, I'm trying to think. Um, I guess I like the way they'll show their relationship dynamic and everything, where it's
Mm.
like especially in Smallville, where it's not like annoying because she's always just getting into trouble and she just like the stereotypical like damsel in distress or whatever. Smallville, I think, kind of like turned it up a little bit because they'll have her just like doing MMA moves and they don't really tell you how she learned that, but
No,
she just take on like 200-pound men and beat them
yeah,
both up. But I like that idea of it where it's like, and I also like the idea of, and granted, I did like when they did the secret identity reveal, but if you take that away, I do like the idea of um like Superman, he's got the secret identity, and then his girlfriend is someone who's always trying to find out the truth. So it's like it's a fun little conflict there. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, we're not. No one's too sure about where this film is going to start from or where it's going to lead to. I don't necessarily want Lois Lane knowing about Superman's alias straight away. I want that. I want some, as again, some cat and mouse. I want there to be some. I want them working at the Data Planet and working together without Lois knowing that he's Superman. I always love those moments where Lois would be quite brutal in Clark's put downs, or there'd be moments when she would sort of just blow off Clark for being, clumsy and a bit of an oath. So I'm looking forward to how we see that relationship pan out. And yeah, it's exciting times as always to be a Superman fan. Now, I know you're a busy man and you've got lots on, so I've not got too many more questions for you. But before we sign off with my favorite question to ask somebody, where can people find you online, sir?
so I'm on a lot of places, honestly. I forgot to I was gonna write down like my usernames everywhere because I don't have the same username everywhere. But I have an account on Instagram, Twitter. I'm on Reddit as well. I'll post my art there. I have DeviantArt, I have Tumblr, but I'd say the main ones, like I have a lot of them, but the main ones would be Instagram and Twitter.
Right.
Um,
All the links will be in this podcast and
okay,
on the
yeah, I was gonna
YouTube
say.
video. I've got a lot of artwork that will be shared to go along with this podcast. And again, so here is my final question for you. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot more questions for you in the future, but for you, sir, what does Superman mean to you?
See, I guess I don't know that I have like a super philosophical answer or anything like that, but I guess I just like I guess I'm a fairly like simple person, so I just like that he's like, the quintessential superhero, whatever. It's the bright colors. I like the I like his powers, like it's fun to draw, like anything to do with like flight or anything like that. Honestly, I feel like the main reason that he was my favorite character when I was a kid was probably the colors. Because like I did grow up watching the Justice League show. I think I watched that before I watched Superman the animated series. But like because red's my favorite color, and so I like the red and the blue and the yellow. And I don't know, it's just I feel like probably a large part of it too is just that I like drawing him so much as well too. Like I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm doing it too much, and people are gonna get tired of like, oh, I can't draw anything else. But I
You can
also
stop
like
that
drawing it.
thought
So
right now. You can get that thought right out of your head, sir.
but I do like drawing them. It's probably the only character where there's some characters where I'll draw them and I like drawing them, but I don't want to draw them all the time. Like I'll get tired of it. But I feel like I could genuinely do like Superman art all the time. Like I said, I got away from that the past like month or so, but the what I'm working on right now is back to drawing more Superman. But I guess what does the character mean? I guess I don't know that I necessarily I've never really thought about that before, other than just my favorite character.
That's the thing. I've asked this question to many people. There's simply not a wrong answer for it. It's whatever it means to you. Some people know that I'm going to ask the question and they go off and they'll think of something quite
I take it back.
philosophical.
I'm sorry.
Oh, he's
I
got
did think
something.
of something. I do like and that's something that you'll see a lot with the Grant Morrison writing. I do like the idea of and where people will say, oh, the character's not relatable, or he's like, you can't relate to him. It's not. I'm trying to think of another word besides relatable, but I can't. But he's not relatable. But I like that whenever people play with the concept of and again, Grant Morrison does it the most, where it's just a normal guy who does everything that a normal guy does, except it's on a bigger scale. Like he's got a pet dog that he'll take for a walk, but he takes him for a walk in space. Or like
Yeah.
like there's a great moment in, I think it's in Camelot Falls. That's one I should have mentioned. It's one of my favorites. That's
Yes.
also
Mm.
where he's just like walking to clear his head or think, but he's walking on the floor of the ocean.
Yeah.
Or like stuff like that, where it's like the concept is, or and I think Grant Morrison even says this when he's talking about All Star Superman, where it's like, he's got his man cave that he goes to at the end of the day, but it's like a fortress in the Arctic, or he's got his collection of weird nerd stuff that's like from other planets. Like
Yeah.
some people have like Funko Pops or whatever, and like I think it was All Star that shows he's got the Titanic and like stuff
Titanic
like that. I think
with
that
with
concept
with,
is
with
cool.
with a giant front door key for his cave as well.
Yep.
The stuff
Yeah.
about the zany world of Superman comics that I adore. But those moments, as you said, things that a normal person would do, but in a super way, as it were. I think there's been many a moment where instead of just throwing a stick for Crypto, he's thrown a tree, or
Yep.
Crypto's come back with a dinosaur bone, or something like that, which it takes it out of the ordinary. But again, there are no wrong answers when it comes to anything about Superman. Sir, thank you so much for your time today. This has been an absolute pleasure. I know I'm going to have lots more questions after this podcast to stop recording,
It's all
but
right.
that's for you. I could gladly talk to you for hours about Superman, but I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you do, for all the artwork that you create, for creating so much positivity and joy online. And I'm looking forward more to seeing that in the future. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.